All right, President Trump is vowing to continue hitting Iran very hard, even as he says the country's military is finished.
I don't want to do a ceasefire. You know, you don't do a ceasefire when you're literally obliterating the other side. They don't have a Navy. They don't have an Air Force. They don't have any equipment they don't have any spotters. They don't have anti-aircraft. They don't have radar. And their leaders have all been killed.
And Mark Montgomery joins me now. He's a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Mr. Montgomery, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. You know, I took a look at your op-ed, and in that op-ed in the New York Times, you wrote there are two ways the U.S. could subvert a victory against Iran. So for our viewers who aren't familiar, can you outline what those two ways are?
Yeah, so thank you for having me on. And the two ways both are, involve President Trump. The first is if he calls this too early. In other words, if he doesn't do the full measure of strikes against the Iranian missile systems, drone systems, nuclear weapon systems, IRGC leadership, Navy assets, we've done a good 2.5 weeks, but there's a good 2 weeks left in that. If you don't do that, you won't be able to stop the IRGC or the Iranian government from terrorizing and damaging its Arab neighbors, Israel and the United States. So first of all, you got to get that done. That's got to be strategic element number one. The second thing also involves the president is if he doesn't take the time and the patience to properly secure the Straits of Hormuz so that the United States controls flow through it. That means a lot of commitment of naval forces, air forces covering those naval forces, and some period of time convoying ships in and out. It won't be done in 2 or 3 weeks. It won't be done in 2 or 3 months. You'll be convoying for a good 6 to 12 months. That's what happened, 40 years ago when we faced this same kind of stress. So those are two ways. If the president doesn't properly apply himself and isn't persistent in the pursuit of victory, the United States will lose this war.
Mark, you wrote also in this that another 2 weeks of attacks will ensure the regime can't pose a serious military threat, and that's a really important point there. Today, the president said he believes it's possible if the U.S. keeps up this operation on Iran that the country would never be able to rebuild. So I want to get your take on this. Do you agree with that assessment?
I think it's more like 3, 5, 7 years. And what I mean by that is some systems like drones, we can knock them, destroy all production facilities. They can rebuild them in 3 years. But things like air defense systems, ballistic missiles, if we knock them back as hard as the president intends, it'll be 5 years. Maritime systems, it'll be 7 years. So we can knock them back, but you can't say they're gone forever. That's not realistic, and it doesn't reflect the ability of countries to reestablish their defense industrial bases.
All right, Mark Montgomery, we appreciate your time and insight. Thank you for that.
Thank you for having me.